It was a moment that stunned not just the live audience, but sent a ripple across social media platforms within minutes. Chuck Norris, the legendary martial artist and actor, was kicked off The View following a fiery and deeply ideological clash. With co-host Behar, known for his conservative values and strong sense of patriotism, Chuck had been invited on the show to promote his memoir, which reflected on his decades-long career, his military background, and his thoughts on American culture. From the start, tension lingered under the surface. Chuck appeared calm, polite, and composed. But as soon as Joy introduced a question that pivoted away from his professional journey and into the realm of politics, the entire atmosphere in the studio shifted. What began as a respectful disagreement spiraled rapidly into a heated exchange, culminating in one of the most shocking guest removals in the show's history. Audience members gasped, co-hosts looked visibly shaken, and producers were forced to make an emergency commercial cut as the live taping fell into chaos. Chuck began the interview with his usual stoic demeanor, discussing his early martial arts, training, his iconic roles in action films, and his desire to inspire younger generations through discipline and personal responsibility. The conversation was engaging, nostalgic, and warmly received, but it took a sharp turn when Joy Behar, never one to shy away from controversy, brought up Chuck's past statements regarding gun rights and American identity. "Chuck," she asked pointedly, "you've said before that the Second Amendment is under attack and that America's becoming too soft. Do you really believe that?" Chuck nodded slowly and responded, "Yes, I do. I believe we're moving away from the values that made this country strong: discipline, faith, and self-reliance." That answer, delivered with firm conviction, immediately drew a line in the sand. Joy responded, "Or maybe we're just evolving. Chuck, maybe the country is trying to move away from the cowboy mentality that says my way or the highway." And just like that, the gloves were off. Chuck leaned forward, visibly irritated but still composed. "With all due respect, Joy, this isn't about cowboys. This is about the erosion of American values. We used to believe in personal responsibility. Now we blame everyone else for our problems. We used to protect our freedoms. Now we apologize for them." Joy shot back. "Or maybe we're finally realizing that not everyone fits into the mold that was built by people like you, white, male, and armed to the teeth." The crowd gasped audibly. Chuck's expression didn't change, but the steel in his voice was unmistakable. "I served this country. I didn't ask what color someone was. I didn't ask what party they voted for. I protected them. And I've earned the right to speak my mind without being labeled a villain." Joy didn't flinch. "And I've earned the right to challenge outdated ideas that have hurt more than they've helped." The co-hosts, especially Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin, looked stunned, caught between refereeing the escalating clash and allowing the fireworks to continue. By this point, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Chuck's fans in the audience had begun murmuring supportively, while others looked visibly uncomfortable. Sarah N. attempted to intervene with a question about Chuck's fitness regimen, hoping to pivot away from politics, but neither Joy nor Chuck was ready to let it go. "You talk about erosion of values," Joy continued, "but maybe what's really eroding is the dominance of one narrative years." Chuck's reply was sharp. "It's not my narrative. It's American history, its sacrifice, tradition, and family. And I'm not ashamed of that." The room fell into a hush, the kind that comes before a storm. Joy shook her head. "No one's asking you to be ashamed, Chuck. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop pretending that your version of America is the only one that counts." That was the breaking point. Chuck rose slowly from his chair, unfastened his microphone, and said evenly, "If you brought me here to be insulted instead of heard, then we're done." Joy responded with a sarcastic clap. "Thank you for your service, Chuck." The production team scrambled. Whoopi signaled to cut to commercial as Chuck, flanked by a security coordinator and his publicist, exited the stage. The tension backstage was no less palpable. Producers huddled nervously while audience members whispered to one another, unsure if what they'd witnessed was real or some planned publicity stunt. But it was real and filtered, raw, and wholly unexpected. Chuck, who had rarely courted controversy, in such a public setting, had become the center of the most divisive moment The View had aired in years. Within minutes, unedited audience phone footage began circulating online. The walkout, the argument, Joy's clap, it was all there, and Twitter predictably exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Chuck vs. Joy and hashtag Chuck out trended worldwide with supporters on both sides flooding the internet with takes, memes, and outrage. Commentators from political shows weighed in, treating the event like a debate stage confrontation. Chuck's fans praised him for standing his ground. Critics accused him of refusing to acknowledge changing times. The response from ABC was carefully worded but clearly damage controlled. The View values diverse opinions and spirited discussion. We regret that today's segment with Mr. Norris did not meet our expectations for productive dialogue. Joy on the next day's episode addressed the event briefly. And I don't agree on much, but I never intended for things to get that heated. Sometimes live TV takes on a life of its own. It was a thin apology wrapped in dismissal, and it only fueled the fire. Chuck, on the other hand, released a short video message on his own social media platforms. I went on The View to share my story and speak from the heart, but I won't be shouted down, mocked, or used as a prop for someone else's agenda. America needs honest conversations, not staged confrontations. The message was shared hundreds of thousands of times, resonating especially with viewers who felt traditional values were being sidelined in modern media. Chuck's fan base, spanning from veterans to everyday working-class Americans, rallied hard behind him, but the confrontation also sparked a larger cultural conversation. What is the role of daytime TV in today's hyper-political environment? Is it simply entertainment, or has it become a battleground for ideology dressed in pleasantries? Critics of The View argued that the show had, in recent years, become a forum less for genuine dialogue and more for ideological gatekeeping. Meanwhile, defenders said that guests like Chuck Norris should expect to be challenged when their views contradict the values of a diverse and modern audience. The debates spilled over into primetime news shows, podcasts, and even late-night monologues. Chuck's walk-off was not just about one man leaving a stage. It was a metaphor for the cultural divide so many Americans feel in their daily lives. And Joy Behar, lover or hater, was once again at the center of it. Some praised her courage, others saw her as emblematic of elitist dismissal. Either way, the lines had been drawn, and everyone had something to say. Interestingly, this wasn't Chuck's first brush with controversy, but it was perhaps the first time he'd responded so immediately, so passionately, and so unapologetically. In a live setting, known more for stoic discipline than public confrontation, his decision to leave the set without exploding or insulting anyone left many surprised not by the drama, but by how calmly it all unfolded. This wasn't a meltdown, it was a stand. And for many, it served as a wake-up call about the state of civil discourse in media today. Even Kelly Clarkson, on her own show days later, made a veiled reference to the incident. Sometimes when we talk over each other, we miss what really needs to be heard. Viewers who had long felt silenced by media narratives suddenly had a new folk hero in Chuck Norris, not because of his politics, but because he refused to play a role in someone else's performance, and for that he was both celebrated and condemned. Meanwhile, Joy Behar continued to hold court on The View, seemingly unfazed. But sources close to the production revealed that behind the scenes, ABC was dealing with backlash, not just from conservative audiences, but from sponsors concerned about increasingly polarized content. Several advertisers reportedly requested reassurances that future segments would be better managed to prevent guests from being alienated or mistreated. Joy, for her part, made no further comments about Chuck Norris, instead pivoting to hot topics unrelated to the clash. The absence was telling. The silence spoke volumes. It was clear that while the network stood behind its hosts publicly, there was mounting pressure to prevent a repeat incident. And yet for many, the damage had already been done. The clash wasn't just about two people disagreeing. It was about Millions of viewers seeing themselves reflected in that disagreement and realizing how far apart they truly were.